What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com. Here are my DFS picks for NBA Wednesday, January 20th. These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos. In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's NBA slate.
I'm doing these picks early in the morning so I can get this video out so you have time to watch it. But a lot of things happen before the games start with injury news and COVID updates. So we've just created a live before lock injury and COVID update news article that we have posted right when you log into your draft dashboard. So make sure to check that out.
And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the draft dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made.
Okay guys, let's take a look at the point guard position. I'm going to start off with a value play. I like Jalen Brown from the Dallas Mavericks playing the Indiana Pacers, who have a middle of the pack defense overall. And although they've been pretty good versus opposing point guards, Jalen Brown has averaged 19 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 20 minutes per game with a 25% usage rate. He scored 18 fantasy points last game in 27 minutes. He got the start because Dorian Finney-Smith is out for the health and safety protocols, so he's projected at 22.6 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.8 times value. He's $3,900 FanDuel salary and $400 more on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 218.5 points scored in this game, so I like Jalen Brown here versus the Indiana Pacers. The other value play that I like is Paddy Mills from the San Antonio Spurs playing the Golden State Warriors, who have the 8th worst defense overall and they're middle of the pack defending opposing point guards. Paddy Mills has averaged 21.4 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 25 minutes per game. He scored 24 fantasy points in 23 minutes last game. He's projected at 21.5 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.4 times value. He's only $4,000 FanDuel salary, but he is $1,000 more on DraftKings, so I love that FanDuel price. Vegas thinks there's going to be 226.5 points scored in this game, so I like Paddy Mills here versus the Golden State Warriors. Another point guard that I like is Marant from the Memphis Grizzlies playing the Portland Trailblazers, who have the 5th worst defense overall, and they give up the 4th most fantasy points to opposing point guards. Morant has averaged 37.5 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 29 minutes per game with a 31% usage rate. He scored 41 fantasy points in 34 minutes last game, and he's projected at 39.6 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5 times value. He's $7,900 FanDuel salary and $600 less on DraftKings. So I like that DraftKings price. Vegas thinks there's going to be 221 points scored in this game. So I like Morant here versus the Portland Trailblazers. And the other point guard I like is Chris Paul from the Phoenix Suns playing the Houston Rockets, who have the 7th worst defense overall, and they give up the 7th most fantasy points to opposing point guards. Chris Paul has averaged 33.3 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 32 minutes per game with a 21% usage rate. He scored 33, 39, and 31 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 31, 36, and 33 minutes. He's projected at 34.6 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5 times value. He's $6,900 FanDuel salary and $300 more on DraftKings. So I like Chris Paul here versus the Houston Rockets. Okay, let's take a look at the shooting guard position. I like Paul George from the LA Clippers playing the Sacramento Kings, who have the worst defense overall, and they give up the 12th most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. Paul George has averaged 41.2 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 35 minutes per game with a 28% usage rate. He's projected at 42.1 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5 times value. He's $8,500 FanDuel salary and $600 more on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 233 points scored in this game, so a high-scoring game, good matchup. So I like Paul George here versus the Sacramento Kings. I also like DeMar DeRozan from the San Antonio Spurs playing the Golden State Warriors, who have the 8th worst defense overall, and although they've been pretty good versus opposing shooting guards, DeMar DeRozan has averaged 41.8 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 35 minutes per game with a 24% usage rate. He scored 46, 44, and 36 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 32, 36, and 34 minutes. He's projected at 41.8 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.2 times value. He's $8,000 FanDuel salary and $500 more on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 226.5 points scored in this game, so I like DeMar DeRozan here versus the Golden State Warriors.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, let's take a look at the small forward position. I like Jalen Brown from the Boston Celtics playing the Philadelphia 76ers, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, but they give up the absolute most fantasy points to opposing small forwards. Jalen Brown has averaged 42.3 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 34 minutes per game with a 30% usage rate. He's projected at 42 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.1 times value. Oh, he scored 38, 36, and 51 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 32, 25, and 37 minutes. He's $8,300 FanDuel salary and $400 more on DraftKings. So I like Jalen Brown here versus the Philadelphia 76ers. Okay, a nice mid-range play here. I like Mikal Bridges from the Phoenix Suns playing the Houston Rockets, who have the 7th worst defense overall, and they're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing small forwards. Mikal Bridges has averaged 28.9 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 33 minutes per game with a 16% usage rate. He scored 35, 23, and 44 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 30, 24, and 35 minutes. He's projected at 27.9 fantasy points here tonight. That's 4.9 times value. He's $5,700 FanDuel salary and the same price on DraftKings. So I like Mikal Bridges here versus the Houston Rockets. Okay, who do we have at the power forward position? I like John Collins from the Atlanta Hawks playing the Detroit Pistons, who have the 9th worst defense overall, and they're middle of the pack defending opposing power forwards. John Collins has averaged 30.3 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 29 minutes per game with a 20% usage rate. He scored 36, 23, and 25 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 35, 30, and 25 minutes. He's projected at 30.6 fantasy points here tonight. That's 4.6 times value. He's $6,600 FanDuel salary and 300 more on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 221.5 points scored in this game. So this guy hasn't flashed his huge upside that he has. I just feel like a 40 fantasy point game coming from him. So I think he's going to crush value here tonight. But based on his last 3 games, he could very easily get you around 25 fantasy points and way underperform his salary. So a little caution with this pick, but I think his ownership is going to be low. He's got a decent matchup here. I got a gut feeling about this guy tonight. So I like John Collins here versus the Detroit Pistons. Okay, moving on to the center position. I like Andre Drummond from the Cleveland Cavaliers playing the Brooklyn Nets, who have the 10th worst defense overall, and they give up the 5th most fantasy points to opposing centers. Andre Drummond has averaged 48.5 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 32 minutes per game with a 32% usage rate. He scored 75 and 45 fantasy points in his last 2 games, playing 39 and 34 minutes. He's projected at 53.1 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.1 times value. He's 10,500 FanDuel salary and 600 less on DraftKings. Fantastic matchup here. So I like Andre Drummond here versus the Brooklyn Nets. And if you're looking to save a little bit of salary at the center position, take a look at Mason Plumlee from the Detroit Pistons playing the Atlanta Hawks, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing centers. Mason Plumlee has averaged 28.4 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 28 minutes per game with a 14% usage rate. He scored 33, 13, and 34 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 35, 27, and 21 minutes. He's projected at 29 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.3 times value. He's 5,500 FanDuel salary and 300 less on DraftKings. So Vegas thinks there's going to be 221.5 points scored in this game. So I like Mason Plumlee here versus the Atlanta Hawks.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smickety smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.